Houston streets are never silent even when it rains, but that morning, there was something different in the air. I remember thinking, it's just water. I was wrong. Within 20 minutes, my world was under 10 feet of it. The sun was barely up in Houston. It was a Thursday morning, and Daniel Brooks, a 36-year-old electrician, stood on his porch sipping coffee. He glanced at the gray clouds rolling in. Forecasts had warned of possible storms, but in Texas, that's nothing new. The air was humid, thick, heavy, but still, he wasn't worried. His dog Max sat at his feet. The street in front of his home was calm, quiet. No one knew what was coming, not yet. By 9:15 a.m., the rain had started. Light drizzle turned steady. Daniel grabbed his tool bag, gave Max a pat, and locked up. As he pulled onto I-45, his windshield wipers struggled to keep up. Traffic moved slowly. The local radio interrupted music with a warning. Flash flood watch in effect for Harris County. Still, nobody panicked. They'd heard it before. But rainwater was already creeping into storm drains, and not draining fast enough. By 10:05 a.m., chaos had begun. Daniel's van crawled through waterlogged intersections as waves slapped against his tires. He called his client to cancel. Too dangerous. He turned around. Sirens blared in the distance. A nearby drainage ditch had overflowed. Cars stalled around him. One driver yelled out for help, stranded in chest-deep water. Daniel's heart pounded. This wasn't normal. This was no drill. By the time Daniel reached within 3 blocks of home, the power grid gave out. Traffic lights blinked dead. Buildings sat dark. Phone service cut in and out. A woman screamed from an SUV as water surged past. Daniel parked on a sidewalk and waded through water now up to his knees. Every step forward felt heavier. He wasn't just trying to get home, he was now in survival mode. Max was still inside. That thought hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. His street had become a river. When he turned the corner, his house looked like an island. Front porch half submerged. He kicked open the door and yelled, "Max!" Barking echoed from inside. The floor was flooded. Max stood on the kitchen counter, wet and shaking. Daniel grabbed him, held him tight. "We're okay, buddy. We're okay," he whispered. But they weren't. Water now filled the living room. The couch floated. Daniel carried Max upstairs, kicking away floating chairs and debris. On the second floor, he opened a bedroom window. Rain hammered down. The neighborhood below had vanished beneath waves. No sirens now, just water. Endless water. He radioed 911 on his emergency walkie. No response. Houston was drowning. By afternoon, the water had reached the second floor steps. With Max in one arm, Daniel broke through the attic hatch and climbed up. Using a hammer, he smashed a hole through the attic ceiling to the roof. Sunlight poured in. Rain still fell. He hoisted Max up and crawled out. Now sitting on a slanted rooftop, Daniel looked out. Block after block, then underwater. People shouted from other roofs. A woman across the street waved a white bedsheet. SOS. Voices echoed across rooftops. "Help, we have a baby!" someone cried. Another yelled, "Grandma can't walk." Daniel scanned for rescue boats. Nothing. A man floated by on a mattress, gripping a backpack. Helicopters hovered miles away, barely visible. Daniel stood up, waved his flashlight. No one saw. The storm wasn't over. The water was still rising. While rain paused for an hour, Daniel crawled back into the attic, soaked, shivering, exhausted. There, he found an old photo album. Him and his wife, before she left 2 years ago. He hadn't opened it since. Max curled beside him, silent. For the first time in years, Daniel cried. Not just from fear, but from all the weight he'd carried inside. Now, with nothing below but water, he realized how much he'd lost. As darkness fell, temperatures dropped. The rain returned. Stronger. Lightning lit up the city like a war zone. Daniel shielded Max under a tarp. He kept the flashlight on, waving every 15 minutes. But the water kept rising. The neighborhood was silent now. No more voices, just wind, just rain. A floating fridge bumped into his house. A broken drone buzzed by. Still, no rescue. Past midnight, Daniel heard something faint. A cry. A child. He turned. Down the block, a flashlight flickered. A small figure waved. Daniel's instincts kicked in. He tied a rope around his waist, handed Max his hoodie for warmth, and climbed down into the water, chest deep. He swam toward the voice, every breath labored. The current tried to pull him back, but he pushed forward. Reaching the house, he found a little girl, no older than 8, stranded with her unconscious father on the roof. She cried, "He's not moving!" Daniel checked, pulse weak but alive. He wrapped the man's chest with the rope, tied it to his belt, and lifted the girl. The current was stronger now. All 3 nearly washed away, but inch by inch, he dragged them back to his rooftop. He collapsed, shaking. The girl hugged him. "Thank you." At dawn, the sky began to clear, faint orange behind the clouds. Then, a chopping sound. Helicopter blades. Daniel jumped up, waved his arms, turned on his flashlight. The little girl screamed and waved her jacket. The helicopter tilted, then turned. It saw them. A rescue diver dropped, hooked the girl and her dad first, then came for Daniel and Max. They were safe. As the basket lifted, Daniel held Max close. The city beneath him looked like a swamp. Homes broken, trees floating, cars underwater. But he was alive, and so were the people he saved. The wind stung his face. The girl held her father's hand tight as they hovered over what used to be their street. Below, silence. Above, a second chance. The rescue team dropped them at an emergency center in North Houston. Blankets, hot food, dry clothes. Nurses checked vitals. The girl didn't let go of Daniel's hand. Her father slowly woke up. "You saved us," he whispered. Daniel smiled through tears. "We saved each other." Max barked softly, tail wagging. Finally, they were warm and safe. Later that day, Daniel's story hit the news. Electrician rescues child and father during Texas flash flood. Photos of him holding Max on the rooftop went viral, but he didn't care about fame. He just cared that 3 more people had survived. He watched other survivors come in, some alone, some with pets, some broken, but all alive. He felt something he hadn't in years. Purpose. 3 days later, floodwaters receded. Daniel returned home. Mud everywhere. Furniture ruined, but the house stood. He rebuilt what he could. Neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers hugged each other. Even the girl's family visited, with cookies and smiles. The city had been broken, but its people weren't. Standing on his porch again, coffee in hand, Daniel looked at the sky. Blue. Clear. No clouds. Max sat beside him. The city had suffered, but survived. So had he. And deep inside, he knew something had changed. He wasn't just a survivor now. He was someone who made survival possible for others. And that was enough. Real stories, real survival. Subscribe for more cinematic journeys like this.